A woman gave birth to twin boys, and her younger sister was extremely envious because she had given birth to a girl. Jenny came to the hospital room to visit her sister, but she could no longer suppress her jealousy. She said the babies looked like skinny little monkeys, just as pitiful as she had been at birth, because her sister had stolen all the nutrients from her.
One takes all the nutrients, the other one's left fighting for the scraps.
Jenny even said the twins were her enemies. Her sister couldn't take it anymore and immediately asked the nurse to send her out. Over the weekend, Jenny took her daughter to a parenting class, but the child suddenly started crying and wouldn't stop no matter how she tried to soothe her. The nurse realized the baby might be hungry and asked Jenny to feed her, but Jenny pretended not to hear. The nurse offered to come to Jenny's house to help, but Jenny refused because she didn't want her sister to laugh at her. That night, the baby cried non-stop from hunger. Jenny pulled down her clothes to breastfeed, but the next second she cried out in pain. Her sister smugly said that she never used formula, that she had more than enough breast milk. This made Jenny's sense of competition even stronger. At night, when she heard her baby crying, she tightly covered her ears. Jenny had no choice, so she called a midwife and said breastfeeding was very painful. The nurse found that Jenny's chest was red and swollen, diagnosing her with mastitis, which could be treated with a few rounds of antibiotics. Because she had delayed treatment for too long, her baby's weight was also below standard. The nurse asked why Jenny hadn't gone to the hospital sooner, but Jenny said her sister had 2 kids and handled everything with ease, and she didn't want to fall behind.
If she can do that, then I should be able to feed one.
Some women can't breastfeed through no fault of their own. Not mean that they're failing as mothers. Not at all.
The pregnant woman was carrying twins, yet still wore high heels out every day. The nurse suggested she switch to a pair of flat shoes, but Jenny firmly refused.
No, heels are my trademark. First thing my fella noticed about me when we first met was my pink stilettos.
Because of swelling in her calves, she was in so much pain every night that she couldn't sleep. The babies also pressed on her so hard that she could barely breathe. But whenever she thought about her husband working so hard outside to make money, she felt that this pain was nothing. The nurse informed Jenny that she needed to do a home visit to check the environment ahead of the delivery. But Jenny looked troubled. Then she quietly left while the nurse was busy working. That day, Jenny's water suddenly broke. She quickly called for help, but the pain was so intense she couldn't get a full sentence out. Luckily, the nurse quickly tracked down her address. Jenny struggled to walk home. Suddenly clutching her belly, she collapsed to the ground, her screams echoing through the entire street. Meanwhile, the nurse was biking to Jenny's house, but her birthing kit fell out and was crushed by a passing car.
The delivery pack! Ballybugger it!
The nurse finally arrived and helped Jenny upstairs, but when she opened the door, the room was pitch black. Jenny explained that the landlord had cut the power because she couldn't pay the bill. The nurse looked around and saw the poor conditions were completely unfit for delivery. She found some candles in a cabinet and asked Jenny where the hot water and towels were and where the crib was. But the answer to all of them was there wasn't any. The nurse was overwhelmed with frustration, but there was no time to get to the hospital now. She had no choice but to deliver the babies right there. The woman gave birth to twin boys. Her younger sister was very envious because she had only given birth to a girl. Jenny came to the hospital room to visit her sister. She could no longer suppress her jealousy. She said the babies looked like skinny little monkeys, just as miserable as she had been when she was born because her sister had taken all the nutrients.
One takes all the nutrients, the other one's left fighting for the scraps.
Jenny even said that twins were nothing but enemies. Her sister couldn't listen any longer. She immediately asked the nurse to send Jenny away. That weekend, Jenny took her daughter to a parenting class. In the middle of it, the baby suddenly started crying. No matter how she tried, she couldn't calm her down. The nurse realized the baby was probably hungry and told Jenny to feed her, but Jenny pretended not to hear. When the nurse offered to visit Jenny's home to help, she refused because she didn't want her sister to laugh at her. At night, the baby cried from hunger nonstop. Jenny pulled down her shirt to breastfeed, but the next second, she cried out in pain. Her sister proudly boasted that she never needed formula, that she always had more than enough breast milk. This only fueled Jenny's sense of rivalry. Late at night, when she heard her baby crying, she pressed her hands tightly over her ears. Jenny finally couldn't take it anymore. She called for a midwife, saying that breastfeeding was unbearably painful. The nurse examined her and found a large area of swelling on her breast. She diagnosed mastitis and said it would improve with a few courses of antibiotics. But because Jenny had delayed treatment for too long, the baby's weight had also fallen behind. The nurse asked Jenny why she hadn't gone to the hospital earlier. Jenny said her sister could easily handle 2 children, and she didn't want to seem weaker.
If she can do that, then I should be able to feed one.
Some women can't breastfeed through no fault of their own. Not mean that they're failing as mothers. Not at all.
The midwife stepped onto a shaking wooden ladder, with nothing but deep ocean beneath her. She took a deep breath and climbed up to the cargo ship, but the senior nurse wasn't so lucky. She landed hard and broke her arm. There was a pregnant woman on board, already in labor. The midwife did a quick check and found the baby's heart rate speeding up. Delivery had to happen right now. But the cabin was so small, the woman couldn't even stretch out her legs. How could anyone live, let alone give birth, in a place like this? The injured nurse gritted her teeth and spoke to the captain.
She needs clean bed, hot water, bright Bright lights, soap and towels. Comprende?
He quickly gave up his own room for the birth. Once the room was ready, the nurse told everyone else to leave. She was in serious pain, nearly passing out. The midwife then noticed something was very wrong. The baby had pushed the umbilical cord into the birth canal. This meant the baby was at serious risk and might need a C-section, but they had no surgical tools. To make things worse, the mother was overweight and already exhausted. If the baby pressed too long on the cord, he could suffocate. Then the midwife had an idea. She grabbed a chair and used it to raise the mother's hips, but the ship was rocking, making everything harder. The midwife tried to push the baby's head back gently and rotate it.
Feel for the pubic bone with your left hand.
Under the older nurse's guidance, she slowly adjusted the baby's position. Minute by minute passed in tense silence. Finally, there was good news. Everyone took a deep breath of relief. Just as the midwife reached for the chair, the ship shook again. Thankfully, the baby had moved into the perfect position. Crew members waited nervously outside the door. Then, after a painful scream, the baby was born, safe and healthy. This pregnant girl was only 16. She had just graduated from middle school. Her mother hoped she could give birth before starting high school. She had already contacted an adoption center. That way, no one would ever find out. The doctor diagnosed Jenny with preeclampsia. She needed to stay in the hospital until the baby was born. A week later, Jenny's condition stabilized. She begged the nurse to contact the baby's father. Her mother had forbidden them from seeing each other. She hadn't even told him where Jenny was. When he heard the news, he rushed to the hospital. He was 7 years older than Jenny, just graduated from college and starting a job. At first, they both hoped the baby would just go away. But now, he was almost here. Their parents had made it clear, if they kept the baby, they'd be disowned.
Is it what you want?
It's what everybody wants.
I don't.
Just then, Jenny's mother walked in and saw the man. She immediately told the nurse to throw him out. Later that day, Jenny snuck out of the hospital. The nurse thought she was going home, but Jenny said she was going to find her boyfriend. The nurse chased after her, but as Jenny ran down the stairs, she suddenly slipped. Her wrist was fractured. Thankfully, the baby was unharmed. The nurse begged her not to do anything reckless again. Without her parents, she and the baby wouldn't survive on their own. The next day, Jenny's mom came to visit. Suddenly, Jenny clutched her belly in pain. She was going into labor.
I can stay, can't I?
If that's what Jeanette wants. It isn't what I want.
Her mother left in tears. Before the surgery, the nurse spoke up for Jenny. She blamed the mother for trying to control everything. She kicked out the boyfriend and wanted to give the baby away. Jenny would resent her for the rest of her life. Inside the delivery room, Jenny screamed in pain. Outside, her mother waited nervously, and her boyfriend arrived right after getting the call. She had to endure 7 pregnancies before finally giving birth to a boy. The next day, the baby suddenly died. The mother was devastated, and the nurse could do nothing but hold her. The doctor couldn't determine the exact cause of the baby's death, and only the autopsy could reveal the truth. But no one noticed that the father of the child was glaring at the nurse with a fierce look. A few days later, the nurse was brought to the police station. They had received a letter from the baby's father, accusing her of causing the baby's death due to alcohol-induced negligence. However, that glass of alcohol was given to her by the child's father as a celebratory drink after the baby was born. Do you think the nurse should have drunk that glass of alcohol? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. No matter how much the nurse tried to explain herself, the fact that she drank the alcohol couldn't be denied. The nurse